Omar said it best.
You come at the king, you best not miss.
And look, Harley Davidson may be more in their late Henry VIII, off with their heads era versus the early Henry VIII poetry and flowers era, but they still sold 83,000 motorcycles last year. According to that same article in the Wall Street Journal, Indian only sold 18,000, which doesn't even make you an also-ran in this competition. If you're only selling 18,000 motorcycles, you're functionally a boutique brand, and with the prices they're charging, they're basically already there. So Indian desperately needed to change the narrative, and what could they do during America's 250th anniversary? I have an idea. They could make an ad targeting Harley Davidson, which basically spent the last 123 years being the symbol of American motorcycling for not being American enough.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
I'm assuming you've probably already seen the ad at this point, but just in case you haven't, here it is.
Harley hired a CEO from a pizza company. Indian chose a lifetime industry veteran and avid motorcycle rider. They chased electric bikes and moved production to Thailand. We built Power Plus engines and American bikes right here in Spirit Lake, Iowa. They chased political trends. We backed the people who matter. Since 1901, Indian Motorcycle has been American-made, built by riders for riders, uncompromised. Indian Motorcycle.
Harley hired a pizza man. They moved production to Thailand. DEI? There's only one way we're gonna solve this problem. Billy, get in the truck. We're going to get me an Indian. I mean, that's more or less the point of this ad. It's designed to elicit some kind of emotional response because it's functionally a political attack ad. It follows all of the basic principles. John Jackson likes ketchup on his hot dog. Jack Johnson knows that the only appropriate way to have a hot dog is with mustard and relish, as the good Lord intended. Repeat this structure 2 more times with additional hot button cultural issues to further drive home the impact, and then finish by saying, Jack Johnson thinks it's time to stand up and say, I'm against those things that everybody hates, except adulation and uproarious applause. The problem is the claims that you're making have to have merit. So do Indians. Indian's first claim is that Artie Starrs comes from Pizza Hut, and as a pizza man, he doesn't know dick all about what riders need or anything about the motorcycle industry. And you're probably right, he's probably got a lot to learn, but he probably already has figured out the one trick that matters to a CEO: how to make a boatload of money. Starrs absolutely was the president of Pizza Hut US from 16 to 19, and then he was the CEO of Pizza Hut from 19 to 21. During that time, Yum Brands, the parent company of Pizza Hut, went from roughly $65 a share to $135 a share. Now, admittedly, that's not all Pizza Hut, but Pizza Hut as a brand is valued anywhere between $3.5 to $4.5 billion.
This is a Fox News fake news alert!
So, kind of funny, we actually just got an update on the value of Pizza Hut because overnight they announced that they are being sold for $2.7 billion. So, that valuation was high, but all corporate valuations are a lot higher than they actually are. Once the rubber meets the road, that's when you find out what a brand is actually worth. But what have you done for me lately, Artie? Well, he and Harley Davidson have now announced the Back to Bricks strategy, where they're going to be focusing on more affordable models, bringing people into the brand, getting some new blood into Harley Davidson. They're doing that with the Sprint model, which they haven't completely announced yet. I mean, we know it's happening, we just don't know the details. And they're bringing back the Sportster at under 10 grand. Not to mention their brand new Super Glide, which is a limited edition model, is only $16,000. And sure, I have a lot of problems with that motorcycle based on the specs, but it is so much cheaper than their previous CVO RR Special Edition motorcycle, which was $110,000. Actually, I think it was more. I think it was like $135,000. Either way, it was north of 100 grand. That's insane. So Artie's plan is to make Harleys affordable. Fucking weird, right? Meanwhile, Mike Kennedy wants to double down on the big bikes, touring, cruiser, trike, that entire segment which has just ballooned in price. And he specifically said that he sees affordable motorcycles as a distraction for Indian as a brand at this time.
Would I want a $6,000 bike that's smaller built frame on a 650 or a 750 more? Of course I would, absolutely. But that will be a distraction for this company in this context.
Those are literally his words, not mine, but it's okay. He's an industry veteran, so.
Wait, did he just call Thai food? I must have misheard.
Harley specifically said that they would never sell bikes in the US that were made abroad. Every motorcycle for sale in the US was built in the US. That is absolutely a fact. Then Harley Davidson decided to move RevMax production overseas to Thailand. This is also a fact. Ooh, shocker, the Harley Davidson simp said something bad about the company, even though the absolute irony of that statement is while the internet thinks I'm a big Harley simp, they are also conversely in comment sections calling me a Harley hater, and you cannot have it both ways. But since the ad came out, Harley Davidson has said that they're bringing RevMax production back to the US, so chalk one up for Indian, right? Or you could just read the fine print. What this highlighted section of text in a greater wall of text says, in real people words, is that Harley Davidson as a business would very much like to sell motorcycles in Europe, China, and the rest of Asia. Essentially, what the text also says is that Harley Davidson would really not like to pay tariffs because those tariffs raise the prices of their motorcycles, which is what every economist has said tariffs jobs are. You see, the RevMax line of motorcycles was first offshored in 2018 as a result of the EU's tariffs on American motorcycles as a result of Trump's tariffs on aluminum and steel. This is just a fact. Harley Davidson made a business decision. The thing is, offshoring really isn't that big of a deal in the motorcycling industry. A lot of people manufacture their motorcycles outside of the home market. Honda, KTM, Yamaha, everybody does it. But it's a good thing that Indian never had this problem, right? Because it would look really awkward if Indian was in fact manufacturing Scouts and FTRs in Poland. Whoops. But don't worry about it, man. It's okay, because that was Indian Polaris, and this Indian is completely different. Indian Motorcycle is officially America's oldest and their newest motorcycle brand. Indian did exist a full 2 years before Harley Davidson. Another fact is that Indian shut its doors in 1953 and was liquidated, spending the next damn near 50 years in some sort of limbo, being bought and sold upwards of 11 times, depending on how you count. They were reintroduced under the Polaris umbrella in 2011, and then in 2025, they were sold off by Polaris to Carolwood LP after they were determined to be a money-losing brand. Let's broad stroke the Harley history so people don't accuse me of being biased. Harley started in 1903. They had money troubles in the 50s and 60s, and they were then bought by AMF in 1969. They were bought back in 1981 and have since been running the show. They never shut their doors, and they never stopped production aside from a few COVID-related production halts because you couldn't have people in factories building stuff. Whether or not Indian makes a better motorcycle than Harley Davidson is a fact for debate. I tend to think that they do. However, the Scout of today has about as much in common with the Scout of yesteryear as I do with my ancient Viking ancestor Spite the Red, who spent his days reviewing seized Saxon horses. Okay, we have to tread lightly here because this is a giant minefield. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It first entered the American political zeitgeist in 2020 and 2021 when it was used as a cultural lightning rod to help politicians win votes and set policy. The ad specifically says that Harley Davidson did a DEI, but what it doesn't tell you is that Indian also had DEI programs, or at least some hand-wringing nods towards it, and they got rid of it the last time Harley was in hot water over having DEI problems, which they shut down in 2024. This is where I also have to mention that Indian is currently happy to work with Sean Strickland, UFC fighter and proud racist. Just so people don't think I'm casting aspersions, I'm only going to repeat one thing that he said. He specifically called out Chinese folks as animals and said they were loud and dirty like savages. I am not going to list any of the rest of the awful shit that he has said, but suffice it to say, you could fill an encyclopedia with this horse shit. Not to mention, he's also homophobic and sexist. So I gotta ask, is this what it looks like when you back people who matter?
And here we go.
I recently did a poll on my channel asking people for their reaction to this whole situation. 46% of people said that this makes both companies look bad. 16% of people said that they think that Indian looks bad now and Harley looks the same. And then 13% of people say that Harley looks bad, but Indian doesn't look any better. Only 24% of over 2,000 people who responded said that they thought Indian looked good. Another way to put it is that 62% of people saw this ad and thought that Indian looks worse. I figured it actually might be kind of fun to dig into the comment section of this post to see what people said. Now, it's entirely true that as a post ages, a narrative can form in the comment section. So what I did was I scrolled back to some of the oldest comments, some of the most original comments, because that's going to be kind of the initial response, not people who are jumping in and bandwagoning for one side or the other. So we're going to dive right in on top with this. Solid AI smear campaign. And I love my Scout, but what the fuck is this? Here's somebody who agreed, I suppose, with the message. Now you just need to build a good looking bike, and I'm sure people would jump ship. Here we go. Indian fan who didn't like the ad. Why? We love Indian because of the quality of the bikes, not because of any stupid smear campaign. Stop this nonsense. Keep your focus on the bikes. You guys should make it focus on making bikes that aren't ugly instead of trying to smear the competitor. Extremely poor marketing and leadership. You'll look back at this piece as a mistake a few years on. I agree. Stop with this since 1901 mess your dishonesty is showing. What's wrong with your marketing team? The CEO you hired is former Harley. He would argue that he got kicked out because he was too dealer focused. There's one solidly against DEI. Always thought that Mike Kennedy 1901 had more class. Sad day for motorsports. Mostly agree, Indian seems to be on the right path, but since 1901 American made, that's just not true at all. I mean, again, a lot of people are finding this insincere. There's plenty of people in here, and you could argue that I'm cherry picking, and I am, because I'm making a point. But the reality here is there's a bunch of people who saw this and had some respect for Indian, and they flushed it down the toilet. Those are the people you're no longer going to be able to capture. And if you have a corporate capture strategy, like Harley Davidson does for all their competitors, and every good company does for all their competitors, this kind of thing does not support a corporate capture strategy. See, that's the thing about this antagonistic style of attack ads. It may create an emotional response that fuels somebody to make an impulse purchase of a $50 t-shirt, but it's not going to cause somebody to go impulse buy a $20,000 motorcycle. But then again, Indian's plan is to sell more merch. Mike Kennedy said so, so I guess maybe it did work. Look, I want Indian to be competitive. A competitive Indian means that Harley Davidson needs to step twice as hard and twice as fast to maintain their market dominance. But this ain't it. It took about 30 seconds for me to think of an even better Indian ad that feels genuine. You open up on a drag strip, you've got some burnouts and some quick cuts set to butt rock music. Then you get this shot of two bikes lining up, probably a drone shot overhead. You reveal that one is the Harley Davidson Lowrider ST, and then lining up next to it is a brand new Indian sport chief. The lights go out, you hear tire squeals and motors revving up, and then you cut to the times and you show that the Indian is the faster motorcycle, because it is. Then you got a shot of the Indian going down the racetrack, leaving a Harley Davidson in its dust, and you cut to the Indian logo. That's it. There's no name calling, there's no revisionist history, it's just one bike being beaten by a better competitor. That is how you come for the king. And until Indian decides to pull their heads out of their asses and start making this industry a better place, I am done featuring their products on the channel.